Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 192 of the current situation. And today it's all about Madrid again. Unfortunately, more restrictions that might be announced in coming days, more areas that are going to be restricted in the capital city here in Spain. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. A big thanks to people that supported the channel through a small donation. You can see your name here. A big thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now, let's get into some of the news, and as I said, it's all about Madrid. Yesterday, as we know, Pedro Sánchez, the Prime Minister of Spain, and the President of the Madrid community, Ms. Díaz Ayuso, came together yesterday and came up with a plan in order to try and improve the health situation or the health crisis in the capital city. We can see here that Pedro Sánchez yesterday, after meeting with the Madrid president, came out and said that this is how we are going to bend the curve in Madrid. Pedro Sánchez has met with the president of the Community of Madrid, Isabel Díaz Ayuso, to discuss the situation that the community is experiencing due to the coronavirus. Sánchez said yesterday that he is here to bring to the citizens of Madrid the support of all the citizens in Spain after the meeting, and pointed out that we are in a second wave and that although it is less lethal, it continues to be very dangerous. So the Prime Minister and Madrid's top official finally coming together, looking at ways to, as he said, bend the curve. Now, as we know, over the last few months, there has been a political mess in this country between some of the autonomous communities and between the central government. Madrid, of course, has been very vocal in its criticism against Pedro Sánchez. Of course, the Madrid government is run by the Partido Popular, the opposition party at a national level. And of course, they have been on the attack for about the last 3 months. And of course, finally, Pedro Sánchez deciding to bury the hatchet, meet with Ms. Ayuso and try to work out a solution. However, it could be argued that this cooperation has arrived too late, as the situation in Madrid worsens on a daily basis. We can see here that the Minister of Health, Mr. Illa, and the Madrid Mayor Almeida have recommended that Madrid residents restrict their mobility to the maximum. The Health Minister also suggested that the Community of Madrid should not ask for the state of alarm, and believes that if things are done well, there is room to stabilize the situation in the region. Now, on the subject of Madrid, we can see here that the virus is advancing in Madrid. The areas on the red line of the restrictions now total 47. And the Madrid president, Ms. Ayuso, is also studying extending the restrictions to many other areas and does not rule out taking them to the entire region. The president of Madrid has advanced that the regional government is studying extending mobility restrictions to many other areas and has not ruled out that they could be applied throughout the autonomous community. Now, we need to remember that there were 37 areas in the Madrid community restricted yesterday, and the criteria used for locking down those areas was that they needed to have an incidence rate in the last 14 days of over 1,000 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. And as we saw there are now 47 areas in Madrid that have that incidence rate. So more restrictions could be announced to certain areas in coming days, or as the president said, maybe the entire region, as there seems to be a lot of critical voices that say that it's not fair to lock down certain areas in a city and not the whole city. So we'll see what happens in the next few days. Now, I mentioned in yesterday's video that there's a lot of confusion in Madrid at the moment. People don't know what they are supposed to do. People don't know where they can go. We can see here from this headline, confusion and anger after the first preventative controls. It's a mess and you don't know where to go. The police are deployed in basic health areas to inform the affected population. And another headline here states the lockdown neighborhoods of Madrid are facing with indignation, resignation and skepticism the first hours of restrictions. Madrid residents confused because the basic health areas do not coincide with the neighborhoods. And that was one of the main reasons for confusion, that it wasn't entire neighborhoods that were being locked down. It was health areas inside neighborhoods, and that's what made it confusing. There were neighborhoods in some areas, for example, that were split in half by having 2 different health areas. And of course, it made it very, very confusing, considering that in some cases you couldn't cross the street. And that's what made it very, very confusing, because people didn't know which health area they belonged to. Now, with the health situation in Madrid slowly getting out of control, people are still asking themselves why case numbers are increasing in Madrid so quickly. Well, one of the reasons could be, for example, that on Saturday there was a concert in Madrid And the 300 people that went to the concert were found not to be wearing masks, not adhering to social distancing rules, and the allocated times for the concert were not adhered to either. So 300 people at this particular concert not adhering to the rules, and this is just one of many stories that you hear on a weekly basis here in Madrid. Now, on the subject of what has gone wrong here in Spain regarding the health crisis, not only the one happening now but the one earlier in the year, we can see here that 20 outstanding figures of public health in Spain say that an evaluation is necessary to identify weaknesses and to avoid greater evils. Again, after writing a first letter in August, the Lancet includes the request to the Spanish government for a commission to assess the pandemic. They underline the urgency. It's not something that can be missed. So another call from public health experts for the government to investigate why the public health system is failing. Now let's have a look at the health situation from the map and graph from El Confidencial newspaper. We can see in the graph on the right the evolution of diagnosed cases and deaths on a 7-day average. And down the bottom we can see those figures for the last 7 days. Case numbers are up 57.25%, hospitalizations are down 7.7%, and deaths are down 28% on previous data. And if we have a look at the map of Spain and the evolution of accumulated cases in the last 14 days per 100,000 inhabitants, we can see that Madrid is out in front at 746.24 cases. Navarra, the second autonomous community with the highest number of cases at 605.77. In the Valencian community, things look relatively calm at 105.12 cases per 100,000 inhabitants. And in the Canary Islands, there are 130.26 cases per 100,000 inhabitants accumulated over the last 14 days. Now, I will just say that this map has changed. The dark blue areas are now places where there are more than 400 cases, and I think last time we looked at this map, it was over 200 cases, so that is why the colors have changed on the map. Now, we just saw that some 20 prominent people in the area of public health here in Spain want the government to investigate what are the problems with the system in this country. And one headline here points to the fact that there's a lack of health personnel to stop the second wave of the pandemic. Spain is below the EU average in medical and nursing professionals, especially in primary care. Medical societies and unions criticize this lack of personnel. So when you read articles and headlines like that, you realize that there's just not enough health workers in the system at the moment, and that's one of the reasons for the problems we have. But then the confusion starts because you read articles like this one that say that more than 263,000 education and health workers are unemployed amid the pandemic. The latest data from the State Public Employment Service show that in August, and amid the outbreaks, of the total number of workers seeking a position in either of the two areas, just over 122,230 did so in the field of education and 141,368 in health and service activities. So there's a lack of health personnel in order to stop the second wave, but there's 141,000 health workers unemployed at the moment. No wonder I'm confused. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. First one here from Howard. Stu, did you see the news in Australia? It appears they have beaten the flu. Most years there is around 400 deaths per year from the flu in Australia. This year the flu deaths are only 40. Unfortunately, there have been 400 COVID-19 deaths. Yeah, Howard, thanks for the comment. I had heard that flu numbers were down in some places in Australia this year. I heard in Victoria, for example, flu numbers were down. I don't know what the reasons behind that are. Maybe people wearing masks. Maybe there were more people getting the flu vaccine this year than in other years. I don't really know what the reasons for that are, but it is good news because, as you said, hundreds of people die from the flu every year, and that number apparently is down to 40. And I also read somewhere that the United States is also hoping this year to have low flu numbers, and possibly in Europe that is what they are hoping for again. But as I said, I'm not sure whether it's due to vaccination or whether people have been locked down in Victoria, for example, or whether people are adhering more to social distancing, not gathering as often as they would in normal circumstances. That could be one of the reasons for the low flu numbers in Australia. One here from Duggan. Ola Stewart, the rise in cases was always going to come with the return to schools, colleges, etc. We live in La Nucia in Alicante. I have to say most people here are wearing masks, social distancing, etc. Went to the beach for the first time yesterday in Benidorm's Poniente Beach. Very well organised beaches, had areas roped off into green sections for the over 70s and blue areas for the rest of us. If we are stupid enough to mix in large groups without masks, then the virus will thrive. As winter approaches, these figures will rise. Yeah, Martin, thanks for the comment. Good to see that you got to the beach yesterday, to some of those fantastic beaches in Benidorm. That's one thing I will give Benidorm. I don't really like it as a place, but the beaches there are fantastic. Some of the best beaches that I have seen in Spain. White sand, clear water, warm water as well. The beaches in Benidorm, fantastic. And good to see that everything is organised on the beach there as well. I know that was one of the plans that the Benidorm Council was keen to point out, just how secure everything was going to be in Benidorm this year, because of course they were expecting lots of tourists to come down until the spanner was thrown in the works by the UK government. And you're right, mixing in large groups does seem to be a problem, and we can see that now restrictions are coming into place in the UK about that. Here in Spain as well, in Madrid for example, now no more than 6 people can gather in any place at the same time. One here from Jay. G'day Stu, in your experience, how easy is it to use cards, credit and debit in Spain? Not just for big purchases, but for small purchases like food. Yeah, Jay, thanks for the comment. No problem at all to use cards in Spain. Doesn't matter whether it's a credit card or a debit card. There's also a system here now called Bizum or Bizum, which banks are offering, and you can also make payments now in shops with that system. It's a system where you pay for something through your bank with your telephone number, so you can check that one out as well. Supermarkets now accept cards for any type of purchase, doesn't matter what the amount of money is, and that's something I'll point out as well, because there was a time there where you had to have a minimum purchase if you wanted to pay by card. Some places it was 10 euros, some places it was 20, and they wouldn't let you pay for small purchases with your cards. But now that seems to have changed. A lot of places now accept cards for small purchases. For example, now you can go to the supermarket, buy a loaf of bread, bottle of water, maybe a chocolate bar, and pay for it with your card. No problems at all. But of course, that's in Madrid, and it might be different in smaller cities or towns, but I don't know. Hopefully some people will be able to shed some light on the situation of what it's like to pay in their particular area with credit cards or debit cards at the moment. One here from Michael Stewart. I disagree with the idea that Spain came out of the lockdown too quickly to save tourism. I live in the Canaries. There are minor problems in Gran Canaria and Lanzarote. Most of the islands don't have too many problems. Why have the Canaries been punished by nations such as the UK when we have less of a COVID problem than they do and are tarred with the same brush as mainland Spain? Yeah, Michael, thanks for the comment. There has been a tendency to tar everywhere with the same brush, unfortunately, this summer. However, I think the criteria for the UK was that there needed to be a certain amount of case numbers per 100,000. I think I read that it was 20, so that figure is very, very low. And I think that even in the Canaries, they had a higher case number than that. I think at the moment it's around 130, so as you can see, it's a lot more than 20. And I think that is the reason for the UK putting that quarantine on, and other countries putting those quarantine restrictions on Spain and advising people against travelling to the country. So I think that's one of the main reasons. But again, you also have to be careful in certain areas. For example, in the Canary Islands, there's probably islands that have virtually no cases at all, and a bigger island like Gran Canaria or Tenerife might have a lot more cases. Therefore, all of the islands are included in those case numbers, which could be considered a little bit unfair. One here from Adrian. Hi Stuart, was watching an interview with Isa Serra earlier today in one of the less fortunate neighbourhoods of Madrid, and she sounds rather pissed off with Ayuso and her handling of the situation in Madrid. And to be honest, I feel obliged to agree with her. Yeah, Adrian, thanks for the comment. There's lots of people upset in Madrid at the moment with Miss Ayuso, but the person you mentioned there belongs to Podemos, which is the polar opposite of the Partido Popular, and they're going to be unhappy with everything that Miss Ayuso does. It doesn't matter what she does, Podemos is going to be angry with her because they are ideologically poles apart. And at the moment, Podemos is taking advantage in those neighbourhoods because they are working class neighbourhoods, immigrant neighbourhoods, and of course, Podemos is in their salsa, as they say here in Spain, in those areas. And as I said, they're taking advantage of the situation in those areas at the moment. One here from Stuart. I accidentally asked this on another video from 4 days ago. My name is Stuart as well. I'm from San Diego, California, and I'm waiting on an offer from HR from a company in Bilbao. When I accept an offer from the company, what does my timeline look like to get into Spain? The pandemic has changed timelines possibly. Does anybody have any experience of US to Spain travel during this strange time? Yes, Stuart, thanks for the comment. And to be honest, I don't know about this particular situation. I don't know whether flights are coming in from the USA at the moment. I imagine that some are, with residents that are returning or people that have a reason to travel to Spain at the moment other than tourism. I think tourism is one of the big no-nos, but I'm not sure exactly what the situation is. But hopefully somebody will be able to shed some light on the situation for you. I know that this is the time of the year when traditionally lots of people from the States come to work in Spain for the Auxiliares de Conversación program. Not really sure what's happening with that this year. I suppose it's going ahead as normal, so there will be people coming into the country from the USA, but as I said, not 100% sure on what the travel restrictions are at the moment. I know that from an Australian point of view, very difficult to leave the country at the moment, and I imagine that in other countries around the world, it is also not easy to travel to the European Union at the moment. But as I said, if anybody knows, leave it in the comment section below and help Stuart out. And finally, want to hear from Bernie. I wish it was not always about Madrid. It would be nice to hear about the rest of Spain. Yeah, Bernie, thanks for the comment. I would love to hear about the rest of Spain as well, but unfortunately, everything is very Madrid-centric at the moment. This is a Madrid-centric country, or at least it has been for a long, long time. Everything is controlled out of Madrid. Central politics is controlled out of Madrid. All of the national newspapers come out of Madrid. And all of the television stations, the big television stations, are based here in Madrid. If you want to hear about your local area, you have to buy a local newspaper or watch your local news. I'm sure that you have Murcia TV or Alicante TV or Canarias TV, wherever you are. Andalucía, Canal Sur, you can watch that to keep up to date. There's also local newspapers that tell you everything. But as I said, this country is very Madrid-centric, and if you were here during the lockdown, you would have realized that. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.